Hello everyone and welcome to Azam Sharp Weekly, and in this episode I'm going to give you a very basic introduction to the reactive programming using RxSwift framework. I'm just going to show you basic things that you can do. We are not really going to dive into observables and subjects and publish and schedulers and all those things. I'm just going to give you or show it to you like the power of the RxSwift framework. And if you were creating a user interface, how will it look like when you are using the reactive programming approach using RxSwift for your iOS application? So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and start new Xcode project. This is a Xcode version number 10.1. I think there's another release after that, but that should be more than enough for our needs. I'm going to go to File, New Project, and going to create a very simple single view application. Now, whatever the name of the application is, you can say Hello RxSwift. That's perfectly fine. And we can save it on the desktop. That's also fine. Now, this is a single view application, which is a default boiler level code that you can see. And it doesn't really have any libraries, which is RxSwift, added to it. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we have integrated RxSwift library with our application. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to close this Xcode or quit Xcode. I can already see the folder right over here. Let me go ahead and jump into this folder. Okay. So I'm currently inside the folder. I already have Cocoapods installed. Cocoapods is a dependency manager or a package manager framework which will allow you to download and install packages and integrate it into your current iOS application. So I'm going to go ahead and say pod init. This will initialize Cocoapods, and it's going to create one file which is called the pod file. This is where you will go and add different packages or pods or frameworks that you like to be integrated with your application. I'm going to go ahead and open this up. By default, it's simply going to open in TextEdit, which is fine, but if you want to open it in any other editor, you can. Now over here, I'm going to specify which parts that I need. First of all, I need obviously RxSwift, and the version number that I'm looking for is 4.0. Now, since this is just a Hello RxSwift demo, it will be nice if we can do or display RxSwift features on this UI or user interface. RxSwift does come with another framework which is called RxCoco, which is more meant to be if you want to manipulate your user interface elements. And since we want to do that, we're also going to download that. RxCoco, and the version number will remain the same. We're just going to use 4.0. All right. After adding these two lines, let's go ahead and close it. And in order to install pods, I'm just going to say pod install. And now it's going to download RxSwift and RxCoco and all the other dependency libraries and integrate it with our Hello RxSwift project. Also from now on, go ahead and start using Rx or Hello RxSwift workspace instead of the Xcode project. So if you see, now we have a workspace file. Let's go ahead and open up the workspace file. It's going to open in Xcode. And you will see that now we have multiple targets added in our application. The first one is Hello RxSwift, which we already know because we added that, the single view application. But the second one is the one that contains the RxSwift libraries, the RxAtomic, RxCoco, RxSwift. RxAtomic just got downloaded because it was a dependency of RxSwift. So that's why it's there. Now we can actually go ahead and import RxSwift and RxCoco, as you can see. So let's go ahead and import RxCoco also. All right, great. At this particular moment, we don't really have anything on our interface. And what we want to do is I want to give you at least some idea of how RxSwift behaves by creating something on the interface. So let's see how we can do that. I'm going to go ahead on the interface and add a slider control. And what I want to do is that as soon as I move the slider value, some sort of a label, which is somewhere on the screen, will get updated. But right now we don't even have a slider, so let's go ahead and add a slider. You can obviously make these controls dynamically if you want to. I'm just going to use the power of storyboards to create these controls. And we can put some sort of top space and all that, those kind of constraints on it. Maybe we also want it to be like in the horizontal center and all that. All right. Well, you can quickly fix these problems by saying add missing constraints and all that if you want. We are going to also go ahead and add a label. And maybe we'll put the label right over here. All right. And I'm just going to add some missing constraints to it. That's fine. Now, I don't really have access to these two controls, the slider control and the label control in my code. So we can use IB outlet. So IB outlet, weak, var, we'll just call it slider, which is UI slider. And the second one is a label control. So I'm just going to say label or value label if you want to call it, which is a UI label element. Okay. Now we need to also connect these things in our view controller. So we have a slider which will be connected to slider and value label connected to value label. Perfect. Let's go ahead and run this application and see what it actually looks like right now. Go ahead and play or press on the play and see the application running in the simulator. And as you might have expected, you will see a slider and a label. Now, if I go ahead and move the slider, nothing really happens, you can see, right? And the code to update the label with the value of the slider is not really difficult at all. I mean, you can write the code in imperative programming, meaning you don't have to use RxSwift. But what if we have to or want to use RxSwift and see how it behaves when we are using RxSwift? What type of code we'll have to write in order to achieve that? Let's go back to our code in view controller. And inside the view that load, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a subscriber to the value change for the slider, meaning that whenever you change the slider value, it's going to fire an event and then we can subscribe to it. So self.slider. And remember that we imported RxCoco. So what RxCoco is actually doing is allowing us or extending different parts of the UI kit and AppKit and all those different frameworks and adding a bunch of properties and functions to it so that it can be used in a more reactive way using RxSwift. So Rx is one of those extensions. And then if I say rx.value, then we are basically tracking or observing a particular value that is emitted from this particular slider. And now I can subscribe to that value. Now I know that you may not understand what exactly is this subscribe. You can think of the value in this case or RxSwift as a sequence. So that particular sequence or observations are continuously emitting events, like whenever I move the slider an event is emitted, and for that particular event we are subscribing. So whenever anybody changes this value of the slider by moving the slider, this is going to get fired, and we can get the value over here. So I can go over here and print out $0 because that's the only argument right now. You can obviously call the argument over here like a value, that's perfectly fine. But right now we are just using $0 to refer to the first argument. Let me go ahead and run this and then start moving the slider. As I move the slider, you will see the value is actually printed out in the console. So this means that this particular subscription is actually getting fired. If I go to the slider over here, you can see it's getting back to close to 0. All right. But what we want to do is we want to show this value on the value label that we have. So we can still do that easily by saying value label.text and then assigning it some sort of a value, which in this case is $0. Okay. Now, one other thing that you want to do is that this particular subscription should end sometime. So we want to dispose it. Or if we don't dispose it, then that subscription just continues on forever. And for that, we're going to use a dispose bag. Dispose bag is more of a memory management thing, which is from RxSwift, meaning that once this subscription is finished, go ahead and dispose it. If you don't dispose it, then there can be memory leaks and all sort of problems. So now let's go ahead and run this and see that if we change the slider, it is going to change the value of the text or not. And you can see that it is. The slider is a little bit sluggish. It's on the simulator, it's not on the real slider. If you actually run it on the device, then it will be much smoother. But right now it does feel a little sluggish. It's just one of those bugs in Xcode. That's fine. Hopefully this will be fixed later on. But you can see that it is working just fine. All right. Obviously, you can achieve this by not using RxSwift or RxCocoa and by simply using the default functions and properties that is available in the iOS or AppKit or UI kit, and that's fine. You can do that. You will maybe end up writing a little bit more code if you are trying to achieve that. So RxSwift is not only concise, but it also allows you to practice the reactive and functional programmings by creating subscriptions and observations and all of those kind of things that are available in RxSwift. This is obviously a very high-level overview of RxSwift and RxCocoa. If you want to learn more about RxSwift and RxCocoa and how you can use the power of reactive programming in your iOS application, then check out my new course. It's called Mastering RxSwift in iOS. It's a 7+ hour course, and it will start from the very beginning and then dive into some advanced topics and even building some real-world applications like photo filter app, a news app, and even using the MVVM with the RxSwift. So if you're interested in this course, check out the description and you will find a coupon code for that, and you can use that coupon code to register for the course. Thank you so much, and I really hope that you have enjoyed Azam Sharp Weekly. Thank you.